Good evening to everyone here. My name is Leah Mann, Gallery Director here at VCA, and for our visually impaired listeners, I am a tall woman with platinum white hair that has been well earned for years of living. First, a gentle reminder to turn off your cell phones. So on behalf of VCA, I'd like to welcome you all here tonight, including our esteemed panel and Leah Mann of Lelavision, who envisioned this evening program. And we are live streaming this discussion, so welcome to those who are joining us from home. In addition, I'm here to give some background and context about the wall outside that has the Patrice Cullors art installation, Abolition Is. It started, or part of it started in March of 2020, which was the start of a tumultuous time with COVID shutdown and the George Floyd protests and the amplification of Black Lives Matter. And so in solidarity, VCA put up large letterings of Black Lives Matters along this long west breezeway wall over a mural that was actually depicting the history of Vashon, the murals artist. The murals artist was in full support. The next iteration of the wall in 2021, we chose to hang an outdoor gallery or a series of large painted portraits that a local artist was creating and putting around town of Black citizens killed by police violence. These two actions brought attention and awareness to the injustices inflicted on our BIPOC citizens. For Patrice Cullors' residency here in VCA in April of 2022, we planned a week of activities, a talk here at VCA in conjunction with the release of her latest book, An Abolitionist Handbook, 12 Steps to Changing Yourself and the World, plus workshops with students and teachers at our local schools, and an art installation. And in discussing this art installation with her, she offered a neon sign, a neon art, of the statement, Abolitionist is. The viewer fills in the blank. I shared with her my personal perception of the evolution of this wall, as I had been the one stewarding it through this various versions. So first we made a statement, as many did, that Black Lives Matter. And then next, an awareness of the injustice and victims of that justice, thereby educating ourselves about systemic racism. And now with her installation and book, we would be moving to solution and action in being an ally. And Patrice and her team agreed. Tonight's talk is a continuation of Abolition Is, so that we may continue moving forward in action. The installation is meant to be an active and participatory project, and so VCA has added banners out and around the installations for individuals to add their voice to it, write what they think abolition is. We're using red magic markers in awareness of one historical oppressive policy, redlining. So after this panel discussion, you're invited to go out to the lobby and grab a pen and write on the installation if you so desire. For now, I'm going to pass the mic over to Leah Mann. Thank you.
What a day. Wasn't that a day? Yeah. All right. Hey, I'm Leah. For our visually impaired viewers, I'm going to describe myself. I'm a petite woman with some c'est la vie hair and a rainbow scarf, and yeah, that's me. I'm the co-director of Lelavision, and this expression on the stage is a collaboration with the Dream Keepers for our Indicator Species project. The Indicator Species project is looking at health indicators in ecosystems. And from Vashon, we are presencing a 35-foot tall Plecoptera, which is a water nymph. It's an indicator species for Vashon because the Plecoptera are the food the coho salmon eat. And when there's low numbers of Plecoptera because of pollutants, we wash down the stream to Shingle Mill. The coho don't get to spawn. And then we're uplifting the indicator species as a way to source solutions and support restoration there. And it aligns with the Dream Keepers, which are an Atlanta collective of scientists, therapists, educators, artists that are looking at wellness factors, but sourcing and supporting it from the people most impacted to create healthier ecosystems. So I'm going to keep talking just a little bit before I introduce our amazing panelists. I want to thank the Andrew Younge Center for Global Leadership for funding VCA for this beautiful platform, King County Creative, For Culture, Interplay Seattle, the Race Equity and Transformation funding from Interplay Worldwide, our community partner, Mukai Farm and Garden, without which we wouldn't have a place to put up the 35-foot sculpture that is happening this weekend. It's going up right now if you want to go check it out. I want to thank Viga, Near Season Farm, Vashon Island Baking Company, Plum Forest Farm, and all the Kickstart supporters that helped us get this far for this project. Yay, thank you. Woo-hoo, Vashon. So part of what we're doing with the Dream Keepers, and I have the huge privilege to kind of be administrating some of the stuff around the Dream Keepers, so just very fortunate with that, to be on the end with such brilliance. We try and bring our whole self in, the whole hokey pokey, not just the brain talk, not just the brain talk. So you can just, I'm gonna do some physical things, and if you would like to join, I invite you to, and they're gonna be playful, because play makes things more fun, and it's healing, and let's do this together as a social justice action. I'll be using some interplay tools, which I love, and some of us here interplay. So these are just some fun things we do to get presence, because justice in the body is balance, respected presence. So if we can do that on the individual and co-regulate that outward, whoa, just imagine that. So here we go. If you were focusing really hard to get here, just like you can take your hands right here and go, whee! Whee! See, that's a social justice action. People freely did something together. Let's do it one more time. Whee! Yeah. All right, you're sitting down, so you can just shake your bum in the chair, because, you know, that feels good. And you can notice you have a bum. You can notice you have a spine and a front side and a back side. My teacher, my meditation teacher, Angel Kyoto Williams, she says, you know, you're rooted in your dignity. Shake your bum and feel that you are rooted in your dignity. It's sneaky deep, right? It's a birthright. No one can take it away. Have your dignity. Call your dignity. You have dignity right here. Imagine if we went forward in the day acknowledging our dignity. Your spine is a symbol for integrity. Sit up straight, take a deep breath. May we move forward in the world in our dignity and integrity. Try that with me. Dignity, integrity. Imagine if we did that before we walked out the door. So I'm grateful that you would do that as an embodied social justice action here today with me. The other simplest thing you can do to come into balanced, respected presence is just take a big, deep exhale. And I want to invite you to do it. This has been a wild day. Let's do it loud and prioritize your exhale. Here we go. Woo! Present?
Yeah.
All right. So at any time, dignity, integrity. tools, playful tools that are sneaky deep. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Sinead Younge.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Leah,
evening.
thank you for that warm welcome. Thank you to Leah and Lelavision, and thank you to the Vashon. And I've been practicing how to say it because I've been told to stress the Vashon. Is that right? Vashon. Vashon. I'm getting better. You know, I'm going to blame my Southern accent. But it's such a pleasure. This is my first time on the island, and it's truly one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. And I said to Leah when I got here, you know, I don't know what I can tell you all about abolition because you all are practicing it in many ways. So we're going to talk about that tonight. So again, my name is Sinead Younge, and I am so honored to be a guest. And I'm gonna also, I hope my pronunciation isn't too bad, but I understand that this is the unceded land of the Schwabaks. Was that okay? Yeah. So I really honor the original inhabitants of this land. And then I honor all of you for being here this evening. I know there's a lot of places that you can be and a lot of things that you can be doing. And for those who are listening to us from afar, I am a short but statuesque woman, Black woman. I have a long, flowery dress on. And you know, these flowers in my dress, in my opinion, really represent some of the seeds that you all have planted in terms of having this conversation. So tonight, and you know, this is such a strange forum for me because I'm a professor, I'm a teacher, I'm an educator. So I don't see faces out there, but I hear mm-hms, and I see some heads nodding, and I really appreciate that, and I'm really happy to be on the stage with these amazing individuals. So it's truly a conversation, and we are going to have a chance to hear from you all out there as well. But I admire you all for what you're doing, and the conversation that started with Patrice in April, but I believe it probably started long before that. And so tonight I want to talk about how we're going to move the needle a little bit. But I'm a visitor here, so I think you all have some educating to do of us as well. So we have a really dynamic lineup for you. Leah also mentioned it, but I just want to shout out to the Andrew Young Center for Global Leadership at Morehouse College, who made it possible for me to be here. And also shout out to my students who are just coming on campus at Morehouse College, which is the home of Dr. Martin Luther King. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. So I'm excited. I hope you are too. And I feel really honored and privileged to be here. And before I have our guests introduce themselves, if I haven't butchered enough words for the evening, there's one more that I'll try to convey to you. It's a Japanese concept called Ichigo Ichii. And it's the concept that one encounter can lead to transformation. So I want you all to think about that. That's the intention I'm setting for the evening tonight. So I'm so proud to be on this stage. So I'm going to hand it over to Trish, and we'll do brief introductions.
All right, thank you. Thank you for coming out, everyone. My name is Trish Malines DeZico, and I'm a Black woman wearing, this is for visually impaired, a Black woman wearing a tailored shirt and jeans. I'm happy to be here. Our family moved here on Vashon 13 years ago. I myself have been living in the Seattle area, well, in Seattle since 1985. I'm originally from Belmar, New Jersey on the shore. And my first career was as a computer scientist. And I did that for 17 years and got to a place where I got tired of seeing so few people of color, particularly people who look like me, in the field, and the field was really starting to grow and be lucrative, and you can see that it was the path, what the path was going to be, and our people needed to be present. So my spouse, Jill, and I started the Technology Access Foundation back in 1996. Thank you. With an initial focus to make sure that students of color had opportunities in the tech field. And it morphed into something else because we discovered that the root of the problem was in our public education system across the board. So today, my focus is on helping schools to create environments where students emerge as creators and critical thinkers and problem solvers and ideators and leaders. And it's the work that I love the most. We raised our 4 children here on Vashon Island. They've all gone through our school system here. And one of the things I like to see it do is to be more equitable for all of our kids here so that as new families start to move here, they can find their home not only on the island as citizens, but also a place where their students can develop. And I mean all the students and not just the few. I think I'm just going to leave it there because as we start to talk a little bit about what abolition is, I'll bring out a little bit more of my story. And again, thank you very much for having me here.
Hello, I'm Betty Peralta. I am originally from Seattle. I've been living on Vashon for just a couple years now. I feel like this is in my face. I'll just stand tall. My work is as a parent coach. So I sit with parents and think with them about how to better meet their children's emotional needs, which ends up being a decolonizing experience for parents and children. And then I also sit with nurses, doulas, therapists, and we think about cases together. As a reflective consultant, I sit with them and think about cases and how they can support families in ways that are less colonizing because they're all part of a system, and these families are in systems that are both trying to help them and are victimizing them at the same time. And so we sit and we think about how to do this in a way that truly does serve families. And I train therapists and teachers. I used to be a K-12 teacher for 14 years. And I train teachers on something called the neuro-relational framework, which is an equitable, trauma-informed, and neurodiverse sensitive way of responding to challenges in behavior and learning. And this is a tool for disrupting the cradle to prison pipeline. And it's, thank you. and it's an alternative to consequence reward that oppress children, and it's a tool for understanding needs and bringing liberation to relationships between adults and children.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Charne Furcron. I am a Black, Southern, neurodiverse, Catholic, hearing impaired, and I'm dressed in a colorful African print dress, and I'm short. I am the program architect for Moving in the Spirit, and Moving in the Spirit is a youth development organization that utilizes dance to impact the social-emotional skills in the youth that we serve. In my role, I have the opportunity to help children understand what's occurring around them in their lives and helping them develop support and decision-making as they live their lives. I also have a special interest in learning styles. Because I'm neurodiverse, I have experience, lived experience with being on the other side of the education system. And I happened to have a mom that was an educator, because in 3rd grade, I was going to be placed in special ed. And my mother's like, nothing's wrong with my child. And so with that, I had school after school. And it has allowed me, and from that experience, I learned to teach myself. But as I'm within my dance organization, I'm able to identify the kids who need that extra support with learning, with understanding how they learn. And I'm also interested in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm a researcher, and I embody movement experiences where people have a better understanding of their intersectional identities. And I want to turn the mic over to my lifelong friend, Alexia Jones.
My name is Alexia Jones, and I am 5'6", African-American woman with a mohawk. And I'm also a person in long-term recovery. And what that means for me, it's been 27 years since I had a need or desire to use any mind-altering substances. It also means that I am a mother, a grandmother. I support my mother in her eldership. And it means that I get the opportunity to live my recovery out loud so someone else will know that there is hope. It means that thank you, yeah, there is hope. And at RISE, we have the organization that I founded is called RISE, and we have found a new paradigm. We sing through our hardest times, we dance to celebrate our recovery, and we take up our paintbrushes and we paint our stories through every color of the rainbow. And we have found that we're not on the fringes of the community, we are the community. And within us burns a fire. And like hot air balloons, we throw overboard the shame, the guilt, the hurt, the pain, the addiction. And we allow our fires to burn. And with that fire, we burn and we rise into a sky that is limitless. And we believe that art plus recovery equals freedom. And so we embrace our recovery. We are restored, inspired, supported, empowered, and we are evolving. And we continue to rise. And I am just so grateful to bring the voice of peer support from Atlanta, Georgia, on the west side, to share with the world. There is hope.
Yes.
So we have a powerhouse for you tonight, as you can see, and we have some wonderful performances coming up as well. So I'm really excited to get into the conversation. And so this is a dialogue, but as I ask these questions, I want those of you in the audience, those of you listening, to think about your own responses as well. Because, this should really spark you thinking about how would I answer these questions, and having these dialogues when you get home and maybe during the Q&A as well. So part of doing the work, and a lot of us know this, is that time to reflect. And what we say in psychology and other disciplines is our positionality. Where do we sit in these issues? Any issues. And so reflection is a huge part of what we have to do. So if we're talking about our communities, if we're talking about some of the social issues going on, one of the first questions that I ask myself is, how do you benefit from the current status quo? How do you benefit from the current status quo? And I want those of you in the audience also thinking about, how do you benefit from the current status quo? And anyone can begin. You know what? I'll begin. I'll take some liberty here. So I was joking about my Southern accent. I was born in England, and it doesn't matter what room I walk into. As soon as I start speaking, and I've lived in the United States longer than I've lived anywhere, but as soon as I open my mouth, someone says, "Where are you from?" And there's this othering that often happens very quickly. If I say, "Oh, I was born in England." Oh, so there's something that happens in people's minds where they say, "Okay, well, you're not like fill in the blank. And so when I think about the status quo, you know, people have painted me outside of a group, and that's how I benefit. So, you know, I won't do that again because I am a facilitator, but I wanted I saw you all looking at each other, and I wanted to get us started, so.
Well, I'll go. When I saw this question, one of the things I thought about is once you understand what the status quo is and how to navigate it, depending on what the situation is, you benefit from it. And the way, I've been on this earth long enough now that the way I benefit from it is it helps me figure out how to help other people of color, young and old, students from every background. It helps me show them how to navigate it. Because the sad thing is that the status quo hasn't changed. And they still need that help to move forward. And, you know, from 10, 15 years at a time, you might see a little bit of movement, and you can kind of take a breath for a second, but fundamentally, things haven't changed that much. So I use the benefit I have to help them get through things, and then maybe, hopefully, help them get to a place where they are making some kind of social change to get rid of the status quo that is hampering so many of us in this country.
I also echo that, but I will say I benefit, I live here, and I benefit a great deal from living here. I feel it's a huge privilege, but without my privileges, I would never have gotten here. I have too many privileges to count, to list here, way too many. I was born to two activists, civil rights activists, who also had a great deal of privilege to give me the education that I got. And the list goes on and on and on. But I feel most privileged by the fact that the status quo gives me a fire. It gives me a reason to do everything that I do. It gives me the inspiration to have something to fight against and something to work towards. And the people that are around me also have that fire, and so it gives me a community. So I am grateful for the status quo, because without it, I might be a little bored. I can't lie. I'm sorry for the pain of it, but I'm also inspired by the pain of it.
The benefit of my awareness of status quo helps me realize that change needs to occur. And I feel like we're all in a state of being uncomfortable, but if you understand the theory of change, you would realize that change doesn't occur when we're comfortable. So as we are living our lives and the world around us, we're in the midst of change. Put your seatbelt on. There's a lot of denial that comes with change, and there's a lot of bargaining, like, is it really? Is it time? Should I, coulda? But hopefully, we'll get to a place past our anger, past our sadness, to a place of acceptance, so real change can happen in our lives that's equitable for everyone.
And so that brings me to that word change, right? Because change is not easy, but it is inevitable. And I am the evidence of that. And so the status quo gives me an opportunity to live my change out loud. And hopefully by living my change out loud, I give people the opportunity to get the boldness and the courage that it takes to step out there and make a difference and bring about change. I'm going to say this one more time. Change is not easy, but it is inevitable. And we are the evidence of that.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I think you all hit it spot on the head. And, there's a quote that pain is the precursor for change. And so, Betty, when you talk about the fire, I think that's a great lead into our first performer.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Chantel and the Real Cosby, who will be introducing themselves.
Hello, everybody. How you guys doing? Good, good. I am so excited to be here. My name is Chef Chantel Jackson, and I just got to tell you the funny story of how I ended up on Vashon. So I've had a catering business for the past 6 years, and everybody knows me. I'm from born and raised in Tacoma, Washington, and it just so happened that I was catering for somebody at a campsite up north, and they paid me to live there for the week to be a private chef. And I was talking to the camp director, and I was like, is this a real thing? Do people, live here and cook here? And they were like, yeah. So I was like, okay. He gave me the website on the whole camp association. And for 3 years, I was just waiting just to see if something would pop up. And I could have went to New York, could have went to Texas, because everybody's hurting for food beverage managers in the industry right now. And one day, I came across it, and it said Vashon, Washington. And I said, wait, I live in Washington. Where's Vashon at? What is this place? So I Googled it, and I was like, you mean the whole time Point Defiance, that little cottage right there, is a ferry? Okay, wait, what's a ferry? Because I didn't even know what a ferry was. And so I get the interview, and I told my mom. So my mom, my dad, my little brother, my grandpa, we all got on the car because I was scared to get on the ferry. So they came with me to the job interview, got the job, and this was a year ago. And so I ended up moving to Vashon. I'm the food and beverage director at Camp Self. Thank you. So I get the job, and I didn't know what I was getting into because I've always lived the city girl life, Tacoma, Washington, and coming out to the woods and being out here was not a great experience at first because I have sea otters that were living under my house. There's so many animals out here. I ain't never seen it before. And that was a struggle. And then I started Googling, okay, because I was trying to find the party spots. Where's the party spots? Ain't no party spots out here. So then I Google, so I'm at the camp, and I notice there's also no black people. Hardly, maybe 2. I'm the only one on staff. And then out of 500 kids that come, I've maybe seen 3 or 4. And so I Google, how many black people live on Vashon? And it said 0.07%. And I was like, dang, I am really alone out here until I met people like Trish, you know what I'm saying, and the small community that there was. So I just remember going to sleep at night, new change, new environment, and it was a struggle. And I wanted to quit every day because this is not where I'm from. I'm from the hood, you know what I'm saying? And I would rather hear a gunshot than hear an otter underneath my bed at night. And so I just kept pressing, and I'm a woman of faith, and I was just praying God, I have to be out here for a reason. What am I here for? And so make a long story short, I was like, you know what? I went to my camp director. I was like, hey, I want to start a fund for children of color to be able to come out here. Because if I press through the hard times of me getting through the wilderness aspect, there's peace out here because I live out on the water. And eventually, I changed my mindset, got peaceful, and I was like, okay, I could live out here. I could do this. But what about the kids where I'm from who are struggling? And every day, while I'm cooking for kids out here, people in my community are dying. Sorry. So I was like, let me start a fund for kids of color to be able to come out here because kids in my community, they don't have to grow up in the gang life or the street life or the drug life all the time. They can come out to here and just experience 1 week of camp. Just 1 week of camp. It might change somebody's life just like it is for all these other kids out here. So I went to my camp director, and he was like, yeah, I believe in your mission, so I'm going to donate $10,000 to it. I was like, whoa. First of all, how you get $10,000? And so I put it on TikTok. I said, hey, you won't believe what my camp director said. he said he's gonna give me 10 grand to start a camp for kids of color to be able to come out here. And it went viral. In less than 3 weeks, I raised $30,000 for kids of color to be able to come out to camp. And so, thank you. And so the Equity Action Fund was started by me at Camp South, and I just really wanted to make a difference, to have diversity, and to have just to stand in the gap between somebody from Tacoma coming to Vashon. And I got about 40 kids sponsored this year, and in October, I'm hosting the very first family camp for people of color. And I got 150 people coming out to camp for the first time who's never been out to camp. And I'm planning the most lit camp, how I would design it for me and for my people, and I'm so excited. Thank you. And so now let's get to, I'm gonna speed this up real quick, so let's get to the music part. I've always been a chef, but during COVID, I was on quarantine and lockdown. My whole life I've done karaoke and professional karaoke, or do championships, and was in the part of the world karaoke championship. But during quarantine, I was like, God, give me a song. Like, let me write my own stuff, because if I can sing, I know there has to be something in me that you put in me that I can spread out to the world. And he gave me some songs, and this one I'm about to perform now is called Fire, and it pretty much just talks about what I was going through during the whole Black Lives Matters in 2020, and me being, I'm a Christian artist, and talking to rappers out here in Tacoma, they were not trying to deal with me. They were like, first of all, you're a chef. What are you doing with the microphone? And they did not have no faith in me until this one right here gave me a chance. And could you please tell the world who you are?
My name is Real Cosby. I'm from Tacoma, Washington. I'm very excited to be here. This is my first time being at anything like this, so I'm glad that I was accepted to be here. Glad that I came here with you. I'm ready to do our thing.
Okay, we're ready. Hit it. Father, I'm so hurt. I'm so filled with hate, I can't even pray. Every time I see our black men taken away, it's just a reminder that we are really not even free. Let's take a deeper look into the Amendment 13. See, they abolished slavery. Unless you commit a crime, then those chains come right back. Find yourself working for a dime. Never-ending cycle created just to hinder us. Night is dead and set ablaze, foundation of America. Fire, incinerate the hate. Let it all burn till there's no trace of pain. Compassion and justice, please stop the rain and let it all burn. Let it all burn. Let it all burn. Fire, screaming fire. I'm screaming fire. Screaming fire.
Yo, check it. No justice, no peace. We don't even get sleep. We can't even count sheep. Pray for me, cause it ain't safe in these streets. Man, I got 3 daughters to raise. They need me back the same way I left them. I refuse to let school teach us these lessons. They just trying to block our blessings, but kill the black man for what? What's the charge? Cause I need to know this. I refuse to live a life that's hopeless. They want advance, it's like hocus pocus, but we can't do that. They can't win now. Trying to last up cause it's life we live now. Trying to come up cause for years we've been down. We cannot trust the police, they've been foul. Took for the black fist, they protected sir, but what happened? Matter of fact, tell me why they killing all the black men. They take one look and tell me I'm a savage. I'm a savage, what?
Just let it burn in Jesus' name. Fire, incinerate the hate. place of pain, compassion and justice. Please stop the rain and let it all burn. Let it all burn. Fire, screaming fire. I'm screaming fire. Oh, 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 oh. Fire, fire.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Chantel Jackson and the real Cosby. Excellent, excellent. Beautiful. And thank you for sharing about the work that you're doing. Really important work. So, you know, I love being in spaces with creatives, and that's creatives of any type. I think that it's one of the most important characteristics that you can have when thinking about how do you solve problems. And so, you know, we talk a lot about in abolition, what do we want to get rid of, what do we want to, you know, remove. But part of that is also what do we want to keep and what do we want to create that's new. And so in thinking about, and you know, let me back up just a little bit. When we got to the island, I said to Leah, do you all have a police station? And she said, yeah, we have a police station. I think they close around 5. And I thought to myself, well, that's when a lot of our police stations are most busy, you know, in other parts of the country. And so, you know, just thinking about, you know, what happens on this island, and I know this island is not a utopia, but I think someone from the audience affirmed that, you know, and that's, you know, I understand that, but I think that there's some things that happen here, and I think, Betty, you talked about the privilege of being here and the privileges of being on this island that other communities look at and would, you know, just salivate over. You know, the fact that there's not this very strong police presence surveilling you, that's something to be pretty envious of. And, you know, going back to the root causes as to why we even have that in various communities. So my question is, in thinking about abolition, what is it that you would like to get rid of? And what is it that you would like to keep and create anew? And again, I want the audience thinking about these questions too. And anyone may begin.
Okay, I went first last time. I'm not going first again.
Well, you know, we've created a space in Atlanta where it is full of color, it is comfortable, it is safe. It is a place where we can be open with how we feel, where we respect one another. And as we dig into the wells of our creativity, we find ourselves. And we come up with these jewels of authenticity that we can share with the world, that we don't have to share with anybody else. In other words, I am who I am. And so creating spaces where I can just be without apology. And that first starts within me, right? And so I would like to see more spaces where we all can heal. Not necessarily, I come out of the recovery community, and I always say we've hijacked that word, recovery. But I think the whole world needs to recover. And I think we need to create these spaces and hubs where we all need to recover from all the injustices and all of the things that we have all been through or been a part of from the very beginning. Because I understand that trauma lives in the very bones of our DNA. And so I would like to see those spaces where we can sing, to celebrate where we're going, where we've been. And we can rewrite the narrative. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's my thought.
I would like to see more awareness of and acceptance of identities, people's differences, and celebration of differences. That's why I'm on this platform and I state that I'm neurodiverse, because I want other people who are neurodiverse to understand, realize that the struggle is real and you can overcome the struggle. Because I could sit up here and pretend I'm something else, but I want the world to understand that we're all different and there's beauty in differences. And we need to embrace that wherever we are and wherever we go.
I want to piggyback off of that. Almost every one of my answers to these questions is around our public education system, because 90% of our students nationwide who are school age attend public school. And what you were talking about in terms of people recognizing you and appreciating you, that's where it starts. And you were fortunate enough to have a mom who got that and fought for you, and there's so many people that don't. We have a school system that is focused on telling kids what to think, telling kids how to feel, telling them who's better than who is disabled, or who, as an English language learner, let's put them over here. And I think that kids pick up on that, right? It's not just a do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. Like, they're in this environment and it continues the cycle, so that by the time the kids today get to be our age, you're still going to be saying that, they're going to hear that same message, right? Because we've been teaching them that there are others and there is the norm. And I had an experience here, and I'm going to share this because on Vashon, I think this is important. Jill, my spouse Jill, and I were in a meeting with our new superintendent, and we were talking about our daughter who has been a special ed student since first grade, and she was being bullied. And one of the things that he was recapping the conversation, because we were also talking about a lot of the Latino families we knew and the challenges they were having. And he said, well, I want to recap this. He says, so there are students of color, special ed students, and ELL students, and the regular kids. And he started to keep going, and I put my hand on his arm. I can't believe I did that to this day. It wasn't rough, but I was like, I need you to stop, because I need you to hear what you just said. And I repeated what he said. And I said, words matter. And if this is how you're thinking about them, then this is how you're treating them. And I think I would scrap the entire public education system. The only thing I would keep, and the only thing that really, in my years of experience around this, that's of value, are the learning standards, what we want kids to know, not how we want them to know it, right? We ask them one way to demonstrate how they know something, that's through standardized tests, and that's wrong. But there are a lot of things that help us as adults know how our children are developing, and those standards are one way. And they're the same standards in every state, so no matter where you move to, the expectation is the same, but we need to scrap the how. And we need to teach our kids more about being in part of a community, and how education maps of the core subjects map to the practical things in life, so that they are ready to become leaders, they are ready to take the great messages and be critical thinkers, instead of saying, I was told that evolution happened this way, and now I'm going to believe it. No, you need to hear all the different ways, and then you decide, right? And at the moment we get into that space where we let kids decide for themselves and we give them the tools, then all the things we're talking about up here on that stage will just be this normal thing, right? We will normally have communities where everybody can be together. But until we fix the fundamental system that we all, almost all of us go through, we're going to continue to have these problems.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Get back to the village.
Get back to the village.
Yeah.
That's right. Get back to the village and make sure that the adults in the village come correct.
That's right.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I want to abolish, is the subjugation that happens in relationships where there's power differentials. I don't know if we can get rid of power differentials, but I do believe we can get rid of the subjugation that are in those relationships. So that if I'm above the power line and there's someone below me who has less power than me, that I would honor the authority, the self-authority that that person has, that they are their own authority, and that anything that they may feel is welcome. Anything that they may say that comes from their heart is welcome, and that they can make their own choices. And that whenever I'm below the power line, that I also remember that I am my own authority. And that whether or not it's welcome up there, it's welcome here.
That's right.
I think that's such an important point, because power shifts. Power shifts, and the way that we treat the most vulnerable amongst us is really a sign of our societies, our communities. And so it's really important. I love what you said. I love what all of you said, and I think that's really important. So I mentioned Dr. King, and I think that, and I said this the other day, he's really one of the most misquoted people. And a lot of people use their ideas of King to perpetuate lots of things that really go against his philosophy. And one of King's philosophies were about the beloved community. And I talked about this, Trish and I were talking a little bit, and in the beloved community, it's a community in which everyone is cared for, absent of poverty, hunger, and hate. It's very simple. It's very simple. So I ask to you all, in your version of your beloved community, describe what that looks like. Describe what your version of the beloved community looks like.
My community has a lot of different perspectives, different perspectives as relates to race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, gender, age, all of that. Just celebrating the differences that we have, and the humanness, because we have to get back to humanness to develop our empathy and understanding of one another.
Community, yeah, I do agree with that in regard to diversity, equity, inclusion, that we embrace one another, and that everybody has a prospective place in the community, and that we respect it and honor it. So there are no big I's and no little U's. Is that if you're not there, then I miss you because I need what you have. If you're not there, then I miss you. It looks like when I was growing up in the military with my father. My father was a Green Beret in the military. We lived all over the world. And my friends were from every country of the world. And we all looked different. But it wasn't until I came back to the United States of America that I realized that somehow I was different because of the color of my skin. That's not community to me. What we had on that military base was community. I could go to my friend's house and eat Japanese food, or my other friend's house and eat soul food, and her mother would tell me stories, and my mother would tell her stories. It was just a beautiful place of diversity, and everybody was treated with respect. That's what community looks like to me.
Yeah, your authentic self, right? No matter who you are, you're always welcome. And to your point, you're missed. And if you're struggling, there are people there that will help you. You don't have to worry about your kids because they'll be taken care of.
That's right.
When they're out of eyesight of you. I just remember growing up in Belmar, our town is very small, and like many people who grew up in the 50s and 60s, you can just go out, get on your bike, and you'll be gone all day. You just had to be back if you're hungry. You know, there might be some food there for you to eat in the middle of the day, but you had to be there by dinner time or by the time the lights came on.
Yeah, the street lights.
And people knew where you were, and somebody's mama was going to call your mama.
That's right.
If you were acting out.
That's right.
That's it.
And that, to me, is community. Everybody raising kids together, even though you had differences, right? But everybody raising kids together to be good, solid kids, to do the best that they can.
That's right.
That's the kind of community I miss. And you could get that even in a city within blocks, right? It obviously won't happen through the whole city, but block by block, community by community, we can have that. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that conflict is a part of community.
Yes.
And for me, a beloved community approaches conflict with curiosity. And rather than wanting just to win
Yes.
and have somebody else lose, to have that curiosity to understand each other and to come to new understanding together so that the solutions incorporate everybody's ideas and that solutions transcend what is existing, that the change comes from those kinds of conflicts. That's my beloved community.
One of the things that we realized when we had a community meeting, and we asked everybody in our community, what is it that you want? What is it you would like to see? And one of the things we kept hearing over and over again was, how do we handle conflict resolution? Because now everybody just jumps to the gun, literally, you know. And we've been thinking about that and pondering that thought. What does it look like to create these hubs where we can discuss and talk about and get back to the basics of conflict resolution? That's good.
Yeah, and King says that peace is not the absence of tension. You need that tension.
That's right.
And you also need to rise above the ego and say it's not solely about me, it's about community. And it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to evolve in your thinking. It's okay to not stick to how you thought about something even yesterday or 5 hours ago or a minute ago. And I think that's the grace that we often don't see as much now. I mean, we're holding people to a standard. That's almost impossible. So I love your versions of beloved communities, and I'd love to live in all of them. We can combine them together. So speaking of the beloved community, we actually have our next performer coming up. Miss Malia, will you come on up and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Malaya. I will be 17 next week, and I've been living on the island for about 8 years now. I'm also an equestrian on the island, so I'm part of that community as well. And I've been doing spoken words since I moved here. It started with like a introduction in like 6th grade, and then I just kind of kept going with it. So yeah. Okay. All eyes on me. We've been failed by a fixed system. Me, you, my brothers, my sisters, Philando, George, Sandra, being put down just to bring others up. I'm tired of being stepped on, crying and sinking deeper and deeper and deeper. But not too deep, because one has no right in white America to feel vulnerable. All eyes on me. Sitting in a self-proclaimed penitentiary, being shackled by emotional trauma, sitting in a state of distorted self-image, neck to neck in accusations that should be protected by proclamations. So deep in self-enslavement that the self-induced death penalty is the only option sitting in front of me, but not wanting to have the same fate to fame as Michael or Akia, but wanting to be praised like Katanji and Miss Gorman. But it doesn't matter what I want, it's all about what they give to me. All eyes on me. All I see to rep black boy joy and black girl pride are rappers, athletes, and comedians. Where are the doctors, lawyers, and lawmakers? All eyes on me. Only celebrated after your self-image is obliterated. They start yelling, all lives matter, blue lives matter, don't we matter too? That's the sound of the protest to our protest. All eyes on me. I repeat in my head what abolition is. What is abolition? Abolition is taking away white power in a white system. Abolition is having equity to reach equality. But truly, equality isn't what we strive for, because aren't we still under the white man's control? Was slavery really abolished? In the last 30 years, we've learned that we can take care of ourselves better than law enforcement can. Worried about your life and your career, so you take ours. I can't breathe. How does one take a gun out instead of a taser? They're two different colors, just like you and me. We're blessed we're still breathing and not bleeding. All eyes on me. Look at me in the eye. I don't want to look at you after the incident. Never again. Living off foreign feelings always. Look at me in the eyes and convict me for a drug offense already set in place by a fixed system. The system that's set up for the majority to thrive in, and it's a closed wings. Look at that 10-year-old girl in the eye and tell her it's because of how she was dressed. She doesn't want to see a face again, but that's all she sees in the mirror now. Was it me? Was it my fault? Look her in the eye and tell her he got off on good behavior. I dare you. Look me in the eye and say everything will be okay. Tell me all the predators will be put away. Tell me that Emmett's murderer will know what it's like to be punished, what it's like to be hated and degraded on. Why are the cells being occupied by black men who didn't hurt anyone? Why is it that restorative justice only comes to the majority and not to the minority? Why not to the cop who killed George and Brianna? Look me in the eye and tell me you get the justice you so well deserved. Look me in the eye and tell me I'm not perfect.
Thank you, Malaya. I'm always privileged to be in the presence of young people because they really do give me hope, I think, like they give all of us. So thank you for that. So, my final question to the panel is one that I've really grappled with, because oftentimes when we think about how do we address various social issues, it is framed as a zero sum. So if you have something, it's taking something away from me. And I don't think it's that simple. But, so what the audience isn't privy to is that we've been thinking and talking and, maybe there's a post-show discussion as well. But, I don't think it's a question of either or. I think it's a question of individual versus community. But I do think, and I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but I do think a big part of this is, what is it that we as individuals can do? What is it that we're willing to give up? So my question to you all is, and I'm speaking to everyone, we're going to hear from my panelists, is what aspects of privilege are you willing to give up for the well-being of others? What aspects of privilege are you willing to give up for the well-being of others?
What I loved about this question was that it brought me back to childhood. And, the adults would always make you share your cookie. And, there's a little pain in my heart to break the cookie in half and give it to my sibling or my friend. And you're looking at which one is bigger.
Yes.
And as an adult, I look back at the times that I've done that and the times that I've chosen not to do that. And the times that I have not chosen to do that, it seems like every single time I regret it. And I feel like I didn't even want the whole thing, And so when I think about giving up, it doesn't really quite ring true for me. What really rings true for me is sharing. Sometimes I work with preschool teachers, and I had a preschool teacher say to me, there's this little white boy who he won't share, and it really triggers me because there's this little black boy, and he was like, I want the truck. And she said, and I just want to, I won't finish that sentence. And she's like, I want him to not have the truck. I want this other child to have the truck. And she's angry with this child, and I'm like, because she says, he's got all this privilege, he's this entitlement. And he's 4. Okay. And what I thought about was how, I don't want this little 4-year-old to feel like he can't have his privileges. What I want is for this little black boy who's quieter and sort of putting up with this treatment, I want him to feel like he can have it too. So it's not about this white boy not having privilege, it's about everybody feeling like they can get in the fight. Come on, little black boy, do you want that truck? What do you have to say about it? We're all listening, you have a voice here. Join the conversation. We don't need to push that white boy down. We just need everybody to have the voice, to have the participation in privilege.
Amen. Amen. That's my heart's cry. It's like level the playing field. Teach me how to fish, I'll go get my own fish, and I'll eat for the rest of my life. Let me get to the mic, because I have something to say too. That's the way I think about it as well. Like, all I want to do is have my say-so in the matter. How I live, how I dress, how I walk in the room, how I stand up, how I sit down. I want my place in the world too. I want my daughter, my grandbaby. I want all of us to have a place in the world without having to be shoved down and pushed down and shut up, And I think when we get to that place, then we'll really get to a world where we really can understand what love really is and what respect really is. But again, it goes back to the foundation. Yeah. It goes back to how do we educate our children and raise them up. But then it goes back to how do we change our hearts to be able to allow this to happen so that the children, the young people in the world, they can have poems that speak to a better future and really focus in on what's coming next, because it's coming. And it's coming real fast.
It is. And they have to have something to follow. And so to me, it's kind of chicken and eggy, right? We talk about the little kid, kids learning how to share power, but the adults are not demonstrating how that's done. And remember, not too long ago, our big thing is we wanted a seat at the table. Then it was we wanted to be at the head of the table. And then it was we wanted to set the table for ourselves. And in order for that to happen, the people who are already there have to not replace themselves with folks that are just like them, right? And so kids need to see, so that needs to happen so that our kids who are in the care of other adults while they're going to school, that they can see that model. And so that's why it feels like sort of what comes first.
Right.
And I'm not a proponent of we'll create our own table, because that's basically building a parallel system that can fail just like the system we're in, that we need to be in one system. That's why I think, to get semi-political, why charter schools are not as good as they said they were going to be. It's a parallel system that's almost starting to look like the public system they were supposed to be better than.
That's
right. And so when you start building separate community tables and all that, and all the wealth and influences over here, and we're over here building our own little table, how is that bridge crossed? How do we get the resources to do the things we want to do? The way we do that is to be everybody inclusive, and the people who have to give up a little bit, just a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit, and to not replace themselves with people who were just like them.
That's right.
That takes time, and you know, we have the attention span of a gnat. And it's just, and so we're like, it's not fixed right now, so let's go do this over here, instead of giving whatever this thing we set up, giving it a chance to work, you know?
Right.
And we just have to have, and I hate to say it, more patience, because we need to push faster, but we need to be realistic about what kind of change we're looking for. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Yeah.
In the 80s, when the crack epidemic was, running rampant, we were losing our kids. As African-American women, we were losing our kids and all this kind of stuff, and we were criminals and all that stuff. Then when the opioid crisis came.
Oh, okay.
It changed.
Okay, change.
It changed.
It looked
Oh my
different.
God, my son, my child. And then I felt like that. I was angry.
Yeah.
Now everybody's getting the money to do what they need to do, and they sing lullabies to kids that are addicted when they're born. And
Right.
they didn't do that for us, and I'm one of those women. I'm one of those women that went through that. But then when I see that young white boy or girl that walks into my facility, addicted, color doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to shift my whole perspective and my whole heart, because it doesn't matter what color you are. You should never have to go through that.
That's right.
So that's what I had to give up. I had to give up that anger of not having the privilege to get the services that I needed. I had to give that up so that I could share what I know works with everybody. And I'm so glad that I did, because I don't want to have that parallel thing going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But why is it always us? You hear me? Why is it always us? Why is it always, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you. Why is it always us?
Because we are a compassionate, loving people. And we just got it like that.
Yeah.
I want people to be compassionate towards us.
Amen.
Yes.
And change is not easy, but it is inevitable. I am the evidence of that.
Yeah.
And that's where the hope lies. Or else I'm going to be a mad,
Yes.
and I don't want to live there.
Yeah.
I can't.
Self-preservation. Yeah.
As Trish was talking, I was thinking about the table and what Shirley Chisholm said about bringing a folding chair. And, so if they don't invite you to the table, you bring your own chair. And what I hear you saying, Alexia, is just don't kick my chair out from underneath me.
That's right.
You know.
I'm saying that I have a table.
Okay.
You can bring you can bring your chair to my table. That's what I'm saying. Because I'm self-preservation in that I can't deal with how you feel. You deal with that. And I no longer want to take that on. What I want to do is build a table and be the example of what it looks like. But I will not be colonized.
Okay.
How are you all feeling? Feeling good? Feeling a little bit transformed? Yeah. How are you all feeling?
Empowered.
Empowered.
Got some new sister friends.
This is a powerful stage. I don't know if you all can feel it, but this is a powerful stage. I thank you all, and I just want to ask, are there any final words that you would like to share? Just in thinking about everything that we've discussed, or just anything that resonates with you right now?
As we get to the table, as you're sitting at the table, remember why you're at the table and what do you have to bring? Because we all have goodness, we all have gifts.
Yeah. Don't stand on ceremony. Come to work. Come to do something.
Yep.
Right? We have a lot of folks who like to march. Not that it's not effective. But they like to march, they like to talk, they like to stand on ceremony, they get into a position that they've been wanting to be in, and then they don't know how to act. They don't know how to move strategically. They don't know how to make change. And then immediately people point to them as a failure. So we need to be smarter in terms of how we approach the kind of change that we want to make while we're making the noise to get there, so that when we get there, we are ready to go to work.
I would just say, do your own inner work. Check your own heart and do what you need to do in order to be able to sit at the table with a pure heart.
I sit with women in domestic violence shelters, helping them understand their children's pain and their children's behavior based on that pain. And I help them think about what their children need, but they can't think about that until they think about what they need. And so what I'd like to invite you to do is, as you think about what those others need, is that you give equal or more attention to what you need. Fill yourself so that you can then have the capacity and the bandwidth to share the love that you can find for yourself.
That's sort of like when you're on the plane and they tell you, before you put the mask on someone else, you've got to put the mask on yourself first.
Yes, and I do believe that that subjugation comes from the subjugation of self first.
You can't fill anyone's cup if yours is empty.
That's right.
And if I may,
Yeah, please,
I just want to bring song into this.
please.
So if you know this song, sing it with me, and I'll sing it like 3 times so that you all can pick it up and sing it. I found God in myself. I found God in myself, and I loved her deeply. I loved her fiercely. Yeah, I found God in myself. I found God in myself. I found God in myself. Any kind of God. And I loved her fiercely. I loved her fiercely. Yeah, I found God in myself. One more time. I found God in myself. I found God in myself. And I loved her fiercely. I loved her fiercely. Yeah, I found God in myself. And if you ever want to just change that word God because that's uncomfortable for you, you can change it for love.
And that's what it's all about, is love. So I thank you all, Alexia, Charne, Betty, Trish, my sisters, the audience, the Vashon Center for Arts, the audience, Chantel Jackson, the real Cosby, Malaya, Leah Mann of Lelavision, and of course all of you who are here with us this evening or listening to us tonight. Thank you all so much. I hope you are a little bit more transformed. And I want to end on this note. As I said, Ms. Cullors is the one who started this conversation and installed the installation. And I was reading online, so you can post here at the center or online. And Dr. Joe Okimoto, he wrote, "Abolition is at the start, Abolition at the start is an inward journey leading to outward action and change. And of course, Dr. Okimoto was a survivor of the World War II concentration camps. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I know we're gonna stop the recording and then open it up for Q&A, but if you need to get up and stretch, please do, but I'm just so inspired. So thank you all. So if you have any questions or comments, we invite you. Leah is going to walk around with the mic.
Yeah, or
It's a
you can
little
stand up
difficult.
and walk this way, or,
Yeah,
yeah.
somebody way in
It
the
was a
middle.
lot, so,
There's some
You
hands
got
out
some
there.
people in the middle.
oh, in the middle, okay, I'm coming.
Can they turn on the house lights?
Oh, yeah, can we turn up the house lights?
Yeah, since it's not recording, it shouldn't matter, right? They should be able to do it.
All right, take one, pass it down.
They should be able to turn the lights up.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter Leslie, who's sitting next to me, and lives on Vashon. In the 2020 election, I went out on the street to campaign. I think you can imagine whom I didn't vote for, but anyway, I had a sign and it said, vote for science. My daughter's had COVID. And that's what I'd like to ask about. Seems to me that your beloved community should have a scientific atmosphere that allows everybody to be collegiate and seek the truth. And isn't that, to your point about education, how important it is for the schools of education across the country to get very much more serious about how they train teachers. And there's a very important starting point. Would you comment on that?
I want to understand what you're saying. Are you saying that science should be core to how we grow communities?
I think we need a generations of young people who feel the same collegiality and equality that scientists do, openness to truth, and to move forward. You know, we can't go forward with the using lies and misrepresentations which harm all our relationships. And so I think that it's going to take a generation to have that more open-minded outlook that scientists do. They have to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I
be
understand.
open-minded and understand that diversity is in every scientific biological way.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying now. Absolutely. You know, one of the things, we have an academic model called STEM by TAF, and one of the core tenets is around getting kids to be critical thinkers and problem solvers, and understanding how to collect data, understanding how to know what data is good and what is bad, and how to pull it together to solve a problem. And that's basically the scientific process, right? So we focus on the scientific process plus the engineering design process to make something, right? When you're solving a problem, a lot of times you have to create. And so between the two of those, we're teaching kids to really look at every piece of information possible, understand where it came from. You know, one of the things that we're doing now, there's this work in artificial intelligence, which you know is built off of current data. Well, current data is inherently sexist, racist, and every other kind of ism you can think of. And so we're working with a group called AI for All. Our kids are now, and they're doing this work to understand this so they can start changing working with the data that's already there and then changing data that's being fed in. We have to, as a school community, look at those very practical examples instead of doing things that we do, like the curriculum says that we have to look at, care about our water, which is great, in the Puget Sound, while we let kids who live in the city walk past trash every day and have lead in their paint and have pollution coming down, and we don't tie that to science, right? We say science is basically what white people think about, white people in education. They think about this in science instead of looking at science from various perspectives. So you are absolutely right. This is big work, but everybody has to be on the same page, and every teacher has to have some level of professional development, not just science teachers, right? Math teachers, humanities teachers, art teachers, all of them, because they should be doing this work together. Is not done in isolation.
And it
we
has
can do that here, by the way. I'm sorry, just real quick. We can do that here on this island if we actually focus and decided to do it. But we don't put the effort into that, right? We're still hanging on those 3 little blue ribbon years we had. We got to do better.
That's good. That's good.
And then my question would be, and it's really more rhetorical, is what would it take to be strategic in doing those things to get there? And it really is a rhetorical question, but just something for everyone to think about. And I just want to add a finer point to that. As a scientist, we strive to be objective, but science is inherently subjective, which is what you were saying, and value-driven. And I think that, the problems we're seeing with people not being scientifically literate right now really are issues of trust.
Yes.
So I think there's so many interlocking systems that are putting us where we are. But I think your point is well taken.
And as an evaluator, I've been looking at ways to bring people into the process. And this summer, with my students, I wanted to figure out how the program had impacted them. And I realized that some of the students couldn't read in 8th grade, and they couldn't read, and I wanted to ensure that their opinion could be included. So we actually embodied the evaluation process. I would ask the question like, what do you like best about Moving in the Spirit's summer camp? And they had responses like making new friends, exploring challenges, accepting people for who they are. And the list went on, and then I said, okay, well, let's create little phrases about those dances, little dances about the comments. And we actually created dances, and it continued our dialogue. And each student felt like they contributed to the process. So I have information from people I didn't expect to have information from. And in a way that it was an equal process.
That's good.
Yeah, important.
Stand up. First, I want to say thank you for gracing us with this dialogue, and I feel the power on the stage. I have a place at the table.
Could you please put the mic closer to your mouth?
Sorry. I'll start over. Thank you for gracing us with your presence and the continued dialogue. It was powerful. It is powerful. I have a place at the table, but I find myself at times being tired in that conversation. I've done some inner work and come to understand that if I believe that I am equal, then I can no longer ask for equity. But that conversation is for others to get them to that point. My ask is, as Trish was speaking about the starting it off in early education, when we talk about individuality, but our dialogue still has terms such as minorities that lump us all in one basket, and it strips us from our identity and our individuality. How do we change that narrative and continue to change the dialogue, and so that it can start to subliminally seep into our souls to let our youth know that they are worthy and they are valued. And so when actions happen to them, they know to show back up at the table that it is expected of them. That's my question. It can be rhetorical.
Yeah, that's a good question. And changing the narrative means going back and changing the words.
Yes.
So when I introduced myself, I said, I'm a person in long-term recovery. And then I went to explain exactly what that means. Instead of saying, I'm a recovering addict. That's fine if that's what people want to say. But we choose in our community to do what we call recovery messaging. So instead of saying, I'm an addict, I say a person in long-term recovery. And then I go to explain the goodness that goes along with that, which means I am resilient, which means I am courageous, which means I am an overcomer. And then also changing words so that it brings in the light and not the darkness of a thing. And so I agree with you. It is time to change the narrative and change these words that we use to describe ourselves and describe our community. You know, I think it's in the written words that we have on paper that divide us, not necessarily our hearts, but the laws and the words that we follow. So yeah, you're right. It's time to go back to the drawing board and change our language.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I was slow.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can, and it's coming.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Lee. Good evening, ladies. I enjoyed this immensely. There are probably three of you that I identify very strongly, you, and you. Because of the accent. People would always ask me when I was in the Army, where are you from, boy? You talk funny. But I have two issues, really, and I think I'm going to have to split them up because I don't want to stand here too long. And I think I'll pick the issue of education. And you start off with the education in K through 12. It really begins, right? 0 through 5.
Correct.
And I went to a public school, and I hated school. I failed the 3rd grade, I failed the 7th grade, 9th grade I dropped out, I went in the Army, and teachers told my mother that there was something wrong with me, I was stupid. Nevertheless, I went in the Army and got involved with drugs, came out, got clean, went to college. Rutgers University, and then I had to flash my colors.
Right.
Howard Law School, finally.
Age
But the school system back then, I grew up in the 40s. You said the 50s. I was born in 42. So I was in school in 47. The school system back then, from what I've raised 4 children, all doing well. This is my daughter-in-law. She and my youngest son just bought a house here on Vashon. And we're loving it, my wife and I, by the way. The school system, just one last thing to plug into the education. I was a career prosecutor for 40 years or more, either as a prosecutor in Philadelphia and a special prosecutor up in northeastern Pennsylvania. So in Philadelphia, I saw a lot of kids, a lot of black kids, a lot of mostly men. There are, of course, women as well. And the system there wasn't much better than the system where I grew up. I grew up in a mostly white community. I was the only black kid in the class. But it was the same. Kids came out of school, couldn't read. And there were other problems too, real social problems in terms of
how they fit in. I know it was for me, how they fit in, how a poor black kid who has been, you feel this, discriminated against, and you know that when you go into kindergarten.
Yeah.
You're different. I mean, it doesn't have to be 1947, could have been 2007. It's the same thing. But one of the problems I continually saw, or I thought I saw, I'm not sure. I agree with everything you said, by the way, in terms of the education, is that there was no foundation at home. And a lot of that, of course, has to do with the drug. I went through the drug epidemic. Well, both of them back in the 60s. And then when I was a career prosecutor as well. Part of it was drugs, poverty, the segregation, all those things that are degrading, you know, for a family. And a lot of the families were single-parent families. But again, back to what I said about the kids going to school from 0 to 5, I just saw a lot of them as being ill-prepared for school. They dropped out of school, got used drugs. I mean, for some reason, you know, God didn't put his hand on some of them like he did on me. But they get it. How do you deal with that when kids come to school? So how do you take them from that primary setting and get them ready for that secondary setting?
Universal preschool.
Head Start.
Head Start was great, and now we're trying to get rid of it.
Right.
If it's not already gone. We have public schools now, systems that are finally creating preschool opportunities, but they're creating it in the same daggone model as K through 12. So yeah, I send my kid to a preschool where they're already othered, right? Yeah. Or I send them to a preschool out of their community instead of doing something like, if Auntie is taking care of 5 kids in the community, let's train Auntie how to provide a solid education for the kids so they're ready for kindergarten, instead of saying Auntie now has to take those kids out of their own community, particularly if it's an immigrant community where their own language is spoken, instead of taking them out of there and bringing them to the city. They're trying to do this here. There's a lot of using this example. Bringing them to the city to a school that is sanctioned by the school district. And it doesn't make any sense because the school district pre-K isn't really any better than the school district K through 12. And now you're starting them in that system earlier, right? So we have to do something a little better than taking kids out of their own community, support them in their community so that they show up to kindergarten not only ready with more words and behaviors and things like that, but with confidence. That's where we need to get. Right now, it costs a lot of money to send your kid to preschool. And you have to be damn near dirt poor to get it for free. And so you have all these people that are kind of in the middle that are getting nothing for their kids.
Right.
Yeah, we can definitely do that, and we have the money for it. Let me tell you, we have the money for it. But what we spend that money on is administrators. What we spend that money on is standardized tests, 20 million plus per state per year.
How do you get that going, though? That's the question.
How do you get the...
Well, how do you get the preschool going in the community where you have an actual community action where they're cognizant of the issues and how to... and how to attack that problem?
Yeah, that's going to go, yeah, I agree. That's going to be, yeah, that's going to be community by community because every community is different, right? And so, but they need to have the resources and they need to have people who have knowledge of the system to come in and support them, not to step all over them. So it's like a bunch of different directions you have to come at this. But I agree with you 100% that we have to have our kids ready for kindergarten in a lot of different ways, right? A lot of different ways.
And
yeah.
And don't get me started on testing, because I'll be here with y'all all
Okay.
night. We need to
Okay.
get rid of testing and focus on youth development to support
Yes.
our kids.
Yes.
Because some of the kids aren't getting the things that they need at home. And I know that supporting a child at school will help them move forward
Yes.
in life.
Research shows this. And I just want you to know there's 2 Howard graduates there in the back.
All right.
HU is in the building.
Okay. Now
You
we're
know,
in
and
the
I,
house.
just to put a finer point on it, I do think poverty is a policy choice. And, and so when we're talking about the foundation at home, we have to talk about a livable wage for people to be able to even be home with their children.
That's
Right.
right. Yes.
I
That
think it
part.
really starts there. And I know we're running out of time. So, yeah, one more.
Hello, everyone. Thank y'all, everyone, for being here. Thank y'all, the panel, fantastic. Artists, y'all inspire me, really. And almost 17, that's crazy. You get up, your voice is beautiful. Keep using it. My name is Lance Jones. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia.
All right.
What's up, cousin?
What's up, ATL?
I just moved here on the island a little over a month ago. It's been a wonderful experience thus far.
Wow.
And there's a lot to say, but I'm gonna keep it quick. I work for an organization called Summer Search, and we're in 5 cities around the States: Seattle, Boston, New York, Philadelphia. Where am I missing? Seattle, Boston, New York, Philadelphia. That's 5, right? And we were founded about 32 years ago, by a white woman with fantastic intentions. And so a lot's changed in 30 years, right? And we're trying to push ourselves towards being a wholly anti-racist organization. And that term, abolition, has come up quite a bit in these last few years. We have a board that consists of predominantly white, upper class, high net worth individuals who are unfamiliar with either of those terms. And so we're amidst the education period. And so I was hoping for a little expertise, little guidance, a little knowledge with regard to that conversation and how we not only start, but keep that conversation going. And we'll get to diversifying our donor base maybe later. But yeah, I was hoping if y'all could speak a little bit to that. And just one quick thing. To talk about what a utopia may or may not look like made me think about this book by Kurt Vonnegut called Sirens of Titan. And in one particular part of that book, these folks go to this alien planet, and the aliens they only say 2 things. They say, here I am, here I am, here I am. And the other one says, so glad you are, so glad you are, so glad you are.
Does anyone want to respond?
I can. I think it all starts with intersectionality. And there's I utilize the Power Flower, and it helps you look at the various parts of your intersectionality. It's a diagram that was drawn by Edna Lee. She's a African Canadian. And basically just having people look at their privilege as it relates to their lives and society. And then it'll allow them to have a better understanding of where they are. And that can be a start. And you're right, it starts with education, but it's self-education. People have to want to do the work. Yeah, it has to be internal.
A lot of white-led organizations, a lot of white-led nonprofits are going through the same thing that Summer Search. In fact, there's probably hundreds of thousands of organizations going through that. And some of it is about not thinking you're the smartest person in the room.
That part.
Right? And that you don't necessarily have the solution for, in fact, you don't have the solution for a community you don't even belong to. And that your wealth can be used a different way. And the people who are on the board They are giving to Summer Surge, but it shouldn't be their place to decide how that money is used, right? Or don't give it. The whole idea is giving to an organization that knows best and what to do with it. You met my friend Tyrone, didn't you? Did you meet Tyrone? I think you met him in Tacoma, maybe? If so, then I'm sorry, I forgot. Okay, all right. Well, a lot of people since moving up here. Okay, so say what? I said I met a lot of people since moving up here. Okay. You fit the description of him. He met a few folks that just moved here, and I was like, Mr. Tyrone met him. But I'm here. I live on the island, happy to help. Going through this whole abolitionist movement and racial equity is hard for most organizations. My organization is about 70% people of color. We have 60 people, and it's hard for us. And we've been on a 3-year journey trying to undo a lot of this dominant culture practice that we have all been trained to use. And we're willing. Right? It's hard and we are willing. So it's going to be extra hard for Summer Surge, and I'm pretty familiar with Summer Surge. I remember when they came here, and it was just, yeah, you got work.
Can I add to
happy
that?
To help.
You know what? We are a recovery community organization. We're peer-driven, peer-run. There are no clinicians, no counselors, no doctors. So having the lived experience and being certified to be able to listen to my peers and support them, whether they're in crisis or not, is what we do. The way we run our organization is by asking the community, what do you need? And we have a board that holds us and a system that holds us accountable for listening to our community. So we're now in a process of listening to our community in regard to the medicine-assisted treatment population. What do you need? What does it look like? What keeps you hopeful? What's working? What could be better? And what's next? Then once those questions are answered, then we have a responsibility to give back to the community what they're asking for. Isn't that what the money's for?
Right. Right. Right.
Woo!
Say that.
Amen.
We have.
I just want to add really briefly, you know, this word abolition that we've been using, we know the roots come from slavery. Slavery didn't end because people decided one day, oh, it's a bad thing. Slavery ended because people were strategic in fighting for their freedom and had allies to do it.
That's right.
And I think that we often don't look back at history enough and think about how strategic our ancestors were and the allies that put their lives on the line to end it. And so I do think, you know, organizations are really, really challenging. But, you know, stand in the gap. You know, you're there. You have other allies there. It's not going to be the DEI person who comes in and saves the day.
That's right.
Oh, Lord.
That's good.
We all know that, right? That's performative. It's, you know, anyway, I can.
That's good. That's real good.
So I think we've kept you long enough, and I hope that we've sparked some more conversation. So please continue the conversation, the strategy, the movement, doing things, letting these young people inspire us, letting the older people inspire us, and just making sure that we're moving the needle. Yeah, so thank you all again.
Thank you.